Hey, what's going on, you guys? I want to talk to you about swimming. It is a very competitive sport. It is very much a work in progress in your body's overall endurance. And I could say one thing that has definitely kept me accelerating while swimming is learning the different strokes of how to master yourself in the water. Whether you're swimming in the ocean, if you're swimming in a lake, if you're swimming in a pool, you have the ability to master the flow of being in the water as if you are like a fish, like you're a sea lion, literally. And I could tell you that I started really calculating all of my abilities on freestyle, being able to complete multiple laps on end. And I could tell you it has definitely have given me the ability to be able to stretch endurance that applies to every layer or layout that has to do with endurance physically. I go to this recreational center called the Nassau County Aquatic Center. It has a 17-foot pool, and in it there are just laps from one end to the other. And the whole entire pool is deep except for a standing shallow end. When I first started swimming, I did not have the ability to go literally underwater holding my breath for only about maybe a few seconds. The water was so deep when I first took a dive into the deep end that was 17 feet. And I tried to go and duck dive, which is a name describing free diving, to the bottom to touch the surface of the floor. And I couldn't get down less than an inch. And I remember just looking at it like it was such a hard thing just to keep myself going all the way down to try to reach the bottom. And it took me practice. It took me many attempts just to start to learn how to abide myself within deep bodies of water where I'm fully under the water and being able to hold my breath. You see, it's a science because your lungs, they want to gasp for air. The moment that you close the air in your lungs, the moment that you shut out from the air coming out, exhaling, you're feeling like that air just wants to release itself. Or when you blow out all of your air, your lungs wants to increase oxygen, and you feel this pressure, you feel this tremendous amount of weight that is almost about to explode your whole entire breathing operation system. Your breathing apparatus starts to make you suffocate. And can you imagine just what the feeling is like for someone who is outside of wearing an astronaut suit in space? The gasping for air, just in a matter of seconds, a person would die and black out. Or if you were on a planet that was in our solar system, like Mars, and you tried breathing the air that is not even air that you can breathe, like the oxygen level is just smoke. It's like a vapor, sort of dense, cold, barren atmosphere. You would feel yourself just suffocating, like you would run for your life to try to find where you could look for air to like inhale, but you would be dead just for the fact that you wouldn't have any access to oxygen unless you were somehow able to survive the elements. And running back into a space shuttle, if you were on Mars, and if you had an oxygen suit, if you had an astronaut suit, that's the only way you could actually breathe, is that you have something breathing for you inside of a suit. And without that suit, you would not have air. That's what it feels like when you're underwater. When you try to hold your breath for a minute or more, and it's very hard for most people to hold their breath more than a minute, you feel the burning in your chest, you feel the gagging potentially, where you're knowing that if I don't get up to the surface in time, I could easily black out, I can pass out, or I can end up possibly dying. If I'm down in the deepest part of, let's say, an ocean, if I go to a certain amount of depth, I could lose my concentration of my own consciousness. And I'm going to tell you, it takes a lot of practice on being able to concentrate your breath. You see, when you're swimming underwater and you're swimming, let's say 25 meters from one end to another, because that's how I started, I would have to hold my breath as long as I can, and I would hug the bottom of the pool, where I would try to get myself at least to where I know I'm building myself with breath, that I'm able to move around even in my lungs, even in the pockets of my respiratory. It's a matter of trying to hold that breath before it leaves your body, so it keeps your lungs circulating, so you can keep yourself longer in the water, going longer distance. You see, I've learned this by studying the rhythms of how the body can handle pressure, can handle even when you're feeling closed inside, even when you're basically shutting everything out as far as your lungs, having air when you're underwater. You have to train your body to be calm. It's a matter of slowing down your whole respiratory, starting with the heartbeat. If you slow your heart rate, you're able to slow your whole physiology. You're able to have a very calm presence while you're in water. And you're more buoyant when you're in the ocean, so it is harder to actually keep yourself from staying underwater, because when you're in salt water, your body pushes back up to the surface. And I can tell you the difference between swimming in the ocean and swimming in a pool is that you are more likely to sink at the bottom because of the weight that you carry in a pool, because you are less buoyant, you are less efficient. When I first started swimming, I just knew the basics of regular freestyle. I didn't know anything about depth checking. I didn't know anything about perseverance in swimming laps. I had to actually build forearms to actually go the distance of swimming 50 meters and back. And over time, I would practice swimming underwater from one end to the other. And the hardest, I would say, of swimming ability was swimming in water that had less hydrodynamics. When I first started to swim 25 meters, it was in 17 feet at the Nassau County Aquatic Center, and I swam from one end to the other. I would only get as close as to the ladder, and this was like a massive lane and a massive body of water. I would keep coming up for air every time I would get to a certain point, a certain meter, up to a certain foot or feet that was in the pool. And my swimming partner would keep telling me, I want you to excel the limit. I want you to now do 25 completely and to not stop, and I want you to complete it under one breath. And it took me time. It took me a matter of having to constantly slow my heartbeat, having to constantly, swim to where I was kicking as well as using my arms, because the science of being able to swim, you have to be in a streamlined position. You have to use your arms and you have to use your feet, and you have to kick with them both together and spreading out your feet once you kick. So you're moving like a gliding fish in the water. And I'll tell you what's not easy is, forming that technique in a streamlined position, because when you first start learning how to swim, it's just a free fall. It's you knowing by instinct what you know as far as how to tread. So when people swim and they don't have a technique, they're just doing whatever it is that they know how to keep themselves afloat, to keep themselves treading. You know, I taught a good friend of mine how to swim, and now he perfectly treads in the water. This friend of mine knows how to do, I would say, at the upper basic level of duck diving and depth checking. That is where you blow out your air and you touch the bottom of the pool, whether it's 10 feet, 13 feet. I've gone 17 feet looking up at the surface of the water. It felt like I was in a portal. And swimming just gives you this ability to where you feel like you can conquer the world once you exercise the strength of enduring, you know, being underwater. And I feel like it's one of my favorite overall sports, favorite things to do. And, you know, one time I swam in low hydrodynamics, and this was across 25 meters in a pool that was like long distance. And I remember how many times I failed. I was hugging the bottom and I kept on coming up to breathe because I couldn't. I would count, there was like 12 sort of lines in a row, or 10, and I would have to go either 10 or 12. I would have to count them while I was swimming at the bottom in the shallow end of this pool that I've been going to. And I started back in, it was in the autumn of 2023. I was just at the basic level of just learning how to swim. And I couldn't even really touch the bottom. I didn't have the skill to really maneuver deep swimming. And then I started getting better and better. I started accelerating. It's almost like I could use the word in the water innovative technique. And then by 2024, throughout the summer, I started to master swimming underwater, where I was going from one end to the other, and I mastered in every part, every section of the pool that I was swimming in that was 17 feet. There's three sections. There's a shallow walking lane. There's in the middle where you have the lanes that are going across, which is 10 feet. Then there's one that's 7 feet to 8 feet, and there's one that has starting from 10 feet to 17 feet, I'm going to say. I'm just giving you an estimation. And I was able to swim underwater throughout each section of the pool, and it became a rhythm to where I've just, now I'm on an enduring level of becoming greater and greater at reaching my goal of super endurance. And it takes practice. But whatever your skill is, whether you're a fast runner, if you're someone that can lift even tremendous amount of weights at the gym, build your endurance, build your credentials through what you're good at. If you could literally sing songs that create a melodization with your own voice, and you don't even need an instrument, if you have that talent and ability to sing all types of songs, all types of harmonizations could come through the sound of your own voice. If you're able to dribble around the court and you're able to score a triple-double, if you're able to literally shoot from around the world, and with every shot you're able to get through the hoop, you have mastered the flow of being a courtsmanship. And I'm going to actually just say another thing. We have to realize that our talents are a way of creating a more sustaining future for each generation, because this is what gives us purpose when we accelerate our talents, when we go to the level of high destinations to achieve things that make us become better and more adaptable to even the environments, even the layouts of social interactions through our talents. When we are able to connect with people because of the diversity of strengths and even our weaknesses. They have to be seen in action, not only in words, not only just even in our emotions, but in our practices. This is how people can come together, and this is how we can trade. This is how we can build relationships that we could also make future sustaining revenues. You know what I mean by that? That we could create our own businesses. We could start our own charities. Through sports and entertainment, charities are funded. Through singing, artistry, delivery with technical, mechanical type of skills and engineering, that helps profiteering, in a way that can go towards charity through the talents and through all of our goals in us. And here we are right now today in 2025. I feel that my purpose is to try to conquer everything that could be a level of greatness. At 37, all I could really say is you have to make the time that you have become worth something more than gold, more than silver, more than onyx jewels of what is richness, even physically, but also apply something in a very enrichment in a spiritual platform to the physical strengths tied to what is spiritual in our strength.